And we have our next and last speaker, Proheli Dhachaudhuri, who is a PhD scholar at the Department of Management and Business Administration. But we will know Proheli in a different capacity. Proheli is an extraordinary author, activist, and tell you a little more about her so that you know her. She's completed her MPhil and PG DHRM2. At present, she works as an officer on special duty Human Resource Development Division in West Bengal Industrial Development Corporation under the Department of Industry, Commerce and Enterprise, West Bengal. Apart from publishing a number of research articles in reputed international journals, Proheli Dhachaudhuri is a regular columnist in Anandabazar Putrika and Sangbad Pratidin. And this is how we discovered her potency in writing. Her key in area of interest is women welfare and sustainable development. Currently, she is working on women's empowerment through education and health equity, autonomy, and participation into paid labor force. And I have become an avid fan after reading 2 articles of Proheli. So Proheli, welcome you to this program. And may I now request you to share your interests and passions with us and enlighten us with your research outcomes or your writings as you wish. Over to you, Proheli.
Good afternoon all. Today on this International Women's Day, I invite you to take a time travel with me and have a look back to the history of women. How they have been oppressed for decades, how they have fought for their rights and won many battles. The journey, my friends, was not easy, not even close. Let's go back to 100 years from now, 1921. Before 1921, most of the countries all over the world didn't grant voting rights to its women. Starting from British-ruled India to Japan, Korea, Singapore, Indonesia, Turkey, Thailand, major part of Africa to much developed countries like Italy, Spain, Greece, France, major part of USA, and many more countries didn't give women the right to vote. You know what it means not to have voting rights, right? You are not considered as an adult citizen, which means that only 100 years back from this day, keeping aside very few exceptions, women mostly all over the world were not considered as adult citizens of their country, irrespective of their age, religion, country, wealth, education, or any quality. The only determining factor was their gender, that they are women, they cannot vote. Now, when by birth you are categorically not considered as someone whose opinion matters for the country, this is what happens. Nobody really cares about your education, about your health, your autonomy, freedom, nothing. Because you are just some dependent parasite in this world, whose voice isn't heard. Your existence might still be important for some parallel reasons, for example, for breeding of mankind, but your welfare doesn't become your country's goal. Because as some dependent existence, your development fails to become your country's agenda. Now let's jump cut to 50 years from today, 1971. Do you know that before 1971, officially there was no term in this world called domestic violence against women? Surprising, isn't so? Because we know that more than 30% of reported crime against women in India fall under the category of domestic violence. Even during this short tenure of lockdown due to corona, 1 in every 3 women in our country have faced physical or sexual abuse at home. But only 15 years back from this day, domestic violence simply meant a civil unrest situation, that is, violence from within a country to oppose foreign invaders. Thankfully, in 1973, in an address to the UK Parliament, Jack Ashley first used the term domestic violence to mean violence against women within a household. We'll be even more surprised by recalling that Encyclopedia Britannica states that in the early 19th century, most legal systems implicitly accepted wife beating as husband's right over his wife. And until 1990, legal system of most of the countries didn't have provision for domestic violence against women. Now let's discuss a bit about women in our country. It is only 2005 when women of our country got the inheritance right of property, abolishing the limited estate stated in the previous law of 1956. And remember, forceful marital sex is still not a crime in India. You see, women have been oppressed all over the world for decades, and they are still being oppressed. But today, the extent of this oppression, the socio-economic status and overall status of women varies significantly over geographical location. And unfortunately, the condition of us, the Indian women, are rapidly regressing. Why I say so? Let's see some facts and statistics. Several international institutions have established some indexes to measure equality status of women in a country. For example, Gender Inequality Index by United Nations Development Programme, Global Gender Gap Index by World Economic Forum, etc. Every year reports are published by them, and as per Gender Inequality Index, India holds 123rd position out of 162 countries in 2020. And as per Global Gender Gap Index, India holds 112th position out of 153 countries in 2020. As of today, 1 in every 2 women in India suffers from anemia. 1 in every 3 suffers from mental depression. 1 in every 4 women suffers from malnutrition, and 1 in every 5 women is underweight. In every 15 minutes, 1 woman is raped in India. In every 90 minutes, 1 woman is killed for dowry. As per records of the Indian National Crime Record Bureau, India by far has highest number of dowry-related deaths in the world. Please note that as of 2020, there are only 20% working women in India, which is lower to all developed and most developing countries of the world today. Even all neighboring countries of India, including China, Bangladesh, Nepal, Bhutan, Pakistan, Sri Lanka, and Afghanistan, have more working women than India. Facts and data shows us that when a country's economic participation of women is low, their condition tends to be lower. A country's overall economic condition also becomes poorer. Researchers have shown that even with low education, when adult women start earning, their household autonomy increases. Working women report to have better health and healthy children. We have seen that when even 1 woman of a particular region starts working, the socio-economic status of many women of that region uplifts. What I mean to say here is that financial independence is the key. If you have it, half of the battle is won. As long as you are not earning, doesn't matter how much household work you do, how much care work you are contributing into, your health will go unnoticed, your education will remain unattended, your opinion will not be heard. See, this doesn't mean that if one fine morning all women start working, discrimination against women will suddenly disappear. It's not a magic. Because changes take time. Good changes take even more time. It will be a process, a slow process. There will still remain a lot of work to do, but believe me, it will be the beginning of the process. Never restrict yourself with traditional boundaries. Question it. Seek logic and clarification. Traditions are not bad, my friends. Well, at least not all of them, but everything requires change over time, and we got to choose the best for now. We got to choose the best for the future. When you usher changes, people will talk. Eyebrows will be raised, and intentional barriers will be created on your path. You will be unloved by your loved ones, threatened by the unknown, cursed by the society, and at some point, you might yourself regret to choose the harder path. But that is the rule of change. Accept it. Think collectively and not individually. Remember, it is for the fights and sacrifices made by our ancestors we today's women stand on this forum today. For women like Savitribai Phule, who ignored all abusive words, cow dung, and even stones thrown on her every day on her way to school, and would carry an extra sari to cover her up. It is for women like Mary Wollstonecraft, who fought throughout her life during as back as 18th century to prove that women are no inferior to men. My dear women, now it is our turn to determine what will come to the next generation women. I conclude wishing you all a very happy and proud International Women's Day.